Hi folks, got another ginger beer review here today. This is the Schweppes Classic Ginger Beer, supposedly the finest sodas since 1783. So we'll have a look and see what we think. You pick these up at any supermarket for around $5 for a 4-pack in a 330ml bottle with a screw cap, which I like very much. Means you can reseal it if you happen to have a little bit left. Price wise, this is towards the cheap end of the market. You're looking at $7 for a 4-pack of something like organic Phoenix. So yeah, wouldn't be expecting too much here, but there you go. We'll just have to have a look. They're also quite common in cafes and quite a few shops singly. I guess Schweppes is a pretty well-known brand. It's also available in much larger bottles, 1.5 litre bottles in the supermarkets for around $3.70, which is half the price of your Bundaberg. And even you can get it even cheaper. The day I was there, they had it on special, and that was 2 bottles for $5. You know, 3 litres of ginger beer. So that's really quite cheap. So it'd be interesting to see really whether there's much in this. But there we go. Having a look at the website, there's almost nothing there, and it took me a while to find it. Schweppes in New Zealand, and this is obviously not necessarily the case in the rest of the world, but in New Zealand, Schweppes is part of Coca-Cola, or at least it's made under license by Coca-Cola, and so this is on the Coca-Cola Journey website, and there's really nothing but a picture of the bottle and the nutritional information, which is always nice to have, but there's nothing else as to why you might like to buy any or anything else. So they might have been making sodas since 1783, but I very much doubt whether they've been making the classic ginger beer since 1783. So what's in this? If you have a look on the bottle or the packet here, straight away you see carbonated water, which is never a good sign on something like a ginger beer. It tends to mean that this is essentially carbonated water, sugar and some flavour. So that's not a good start, but there you go. Next ingredient's sugar, fractionally less than in Coke at 10.7 grams per 100 mils. So it's always nice to see that it's not quite as sweet as Coke, but that's still pretty jolly sweet. There is some ginger in here, brewed ginger, 0.25%. Quite what brewed ginger is, I'm not 100% sure. I'd suspect it's just a mixture of ginger, sugar and water which has been brewed up, but the quantity here really is rather small. There's also food acid 330, which is citric acid, pretty standard, cheaper than lemon juice. And then there's flavour. Given that it's not natural flavour, you'd have to say that there's some artificial flavour in here, which is not good. And then there's preservative 202, which is potassium sorbate. Again, that's one of those preservatives that you can get from fruit, but most of them in soft drinks are synthesized in a lab somewhere. And finally there's colour 150D, which is sulfite ammonia caramel, which is apparently a standard colouring agent that they put into soft drinks, but to see it in a ginger beer is really a bit sad. But there you go, we'll see what it's like in the glass. Schweppes is obviously one of those soft drink brands that's been around for ages. I remember it when I was a child as the one that the adults drank. We drank Coke or Fanta, and the adults drank something from Schweppes, whether it was sparkling lemon or more likely a tonic or soda water with some alcohol of some description in it. As I said, finest soda since 1783, so been around for a while, but I suspect it's been bought and sold a bit. With the finest soda since 1783, you might expect this to be a bit like a craft soda or a upmarket gin or vodka or even a craft beer, but at the price you'd have to say there's really not much chance of that. At least it's got some ginger in, so we'll see what we think. What do they say it's like? They really don't say much at all. All they say is that it's with ginger for an authentic taste, and again they repeat that they've been making it since 1783. Okay, let's open it up and have a look. So it pours like any carbonated soft drink. No head, not really a whole lot of bubble either on this one, which in some ways is good because it means it's a little bit easier to drink. There's a slight haze, probably just a slightly brown colour. That's probably your caramel colouring. On the nose, it actually smells more like a lemonade with a faintly. There's a bit of ginger there, but there's certainly not the strong ginger hit that you get from something like your Bundaberg or your dry ginger ales. Taking a swig, you realise that there is still a fair bit of carbonation in there, even though it's not bubbling. And the first impression is that it tastes a bit like ginger beer. I guess there really is just a little bit of ginger in here. At 0.25%, it gives a pretty mild flavour. And it really is a mild flavour with a capital M. It doesn't taste as sweet as Bundaberg, and it's hard to believe that that's the fraction of a gram of sugar. I suspect it's just that there's more citric acid. But as you have another swig and you get the flavour in your mouth, you realise that it is a bit like ginger beer, but it really doesn't taste a whole lot like ginger beer. There's no yeast mentioned on the label, there's no lemon, and that minute amount of brewed ginger really doesn't give it enough flavour. They've just been a bit stingy here. It's not really going to offend anyone, but boy, you wouldn't consider it as a substitute for a craft beer or something you'd want to drink a fair bit of. It's just not gingery enough. It's too sweet and it's too thin. There's just nothing else going on. There's no length to the taste. You have a swig and you think, oh, it's a little bit like ginger beer, and then it fades away to just a hint of sweetness. There's nothing else of any particular interest. There's no interesting natural ingredients or unusual herbs or spices. It's just a plain, I guess it is a classic ginger. It's an attempt at a classic ginger beer, but they're relying too much on the sugar, the citric acid, and the artificial flavour. So I'd say it's a competent attempt at a soft drink that's flavoured a little bit like a ginger beer, or with a fraction of a ginger beer brew. But it's a long way from being as good as your Bundaberg, and it's even further away from being as good as a craft beer or one of the more upmarket ginger beers. Would I buy it again? Certainly not regularly, and probably only if there was not much else on offer. Perhaps if I was stuck in one of those little kiosks you get out the back of somewhere where you've gone for a long walk and there's really only this or some sort of violent green drink. But no, I certainly won't be buying this at the supermarket again. There's no off flavours, there's nothing particularly wrong with it. It's just that there really isn't a lot to enjoy here. So in summary, what do I rate it at? I'd probably give it about a 12 out of 20. There are better options at this price point in the small bottles. In the large bottles, it really is very cheap, and so it's really competing with the generic soft drinks that the supermarkets are churning out. But if you're following the drink less but drink better philosophy, you'd be far better off with something a little bit further up the food chain, or at least the drink chain. So there we go, Schweppes Classic Ginger Beer. Bit of a disappointment, and I really can't recommend this one particularly. Hope you're drinking something better than this today. Cheers.